Hello Year 10, today's topic is going to be a nice easy one for you. It is solving quadratics by factorising. Now we have looked at this before, I think probably in term 1, so it shouldn't be too difficult, but it is something that we need to recap at this point in the scheme of work. The first example I'm going to do is where we have an equation So a quadratic is where the highest power of x that we have is 2. So if we have x squared and we don't have an x cubed or an x to the 4 or an x to the anything higher than 2, then that makes it a quadratic. The rest of the equation needs to be a linear. So if it's x squared and then something x and a constant, that is a quadratic. X squared plus 4x without any constant term would also be a quadratic, and x squared on its own would be a quadratic. Also, x squared plus a constant would be a quadratic. But a quadratic must have 2 as its highest power of x and then a linear equation for the rest of it. So to solve this quadratic, I want to factorise it by putting it into double brackets. Because it's x squared at the beginning, that must come from multiplying two x's together. Because it's 2 at the end, that must come from multiplying two things together, which make 2. And as 2 is a prime number, and these are fairly easy questions where we're going to be dealing with integers, is going to be a 2 and a 1. The only thing left for me to decide is it -2 and -1, so am I subtracting 2 and subtracting 1, or am I adding and adding? This is a positive, so it needs to be 2 plus signs or 2 minus signs. This is a negative, so it must be 2 negative signs. When I multiply two things together and they make 0, that means one of them must be 0. So what this tells me is either x minus 2 equals 0, so x equals 2, or x minus 1 equals 0, so x equals 1. Another simple example. If I have x squared plus 5x equals 0, there's now no constant term. So to solve this, I'm just going to take x out, and then that will go into x plus 5. Same concept. If this multiplication equals 0, then either x on its own equals 0, or x plus 5 equals 0, so x equals -5. That should be enough now for you to do question 3 from exercise 1. So you can pause the video here and work through question 3 from exercise 1, please. Next example is where we have a coefficient of x squared. So let's say we had the equation 2x squared plus 7x plus 5 equals 0. There's now a number in front of the x squared term, so we can't just put x and x into the double brackets. However, because this is a prime number, we can do 2x and x. We know immediately that it's 2x and x, because 2 is a prime number. The only way to get 2 is to multiply 2 by 1. So I've got 2x and x. Now from there, we can either use quite a long method, which is what I'm going to do in the next example, or we can use some logic to help us with this one as well. The constant term here is 5, which is also a prime number. So we know that the number terms in here need to be 5 and 1. So the only question is, does 1 go here and 5 goes here, or does 5 go here and 1 goes here? If I put 1 here and 5 here, I would end up with 10, 11x. So that way round doesn't work. If I put 5 here and 1 here, then when I multiplied the brackets out, I would get 5x plus 2x, which does give me 7x. And because everything is positive, it's going to be plus signs. So that's how I can factorise that one, where there's a prime number here and a prime number in the constant term. What about where the leading coefficient, so the coefficient of x squared, is not a prime number? So this number here is 8. That means it could be 8x and x. It could be 2x and 4x. Now, as we discussed last time, some people can just look at these and work them out without having to do very much. And if you are one of those people, brilliant. However, you still want to learn the techniques to be able to do it, so that if you come across one that you can't just do by looking at it, you still know how to do it. So what we're going to do is we are going to multiply this 8 and negative 9 together. This is going to be equal to something times something. So not the 8 and the negative 9, it's going to be something else. Then this 6 is going to be equal to the same two numbers added together. And we need to figure out which two numbers add together to make 6 and multiply together to make negative 72. Now, because this number is negative, one of these two numbers must also be negative. So where we're doing a plus b to get 6, we're really getting a difference. So I know that negative 72, as well as being 8 times negative 9, is the same as 12 times negative 6. And if I add 12 and negative 6 together, I get 6. So the two numbers I'm looking for are 12 and negative 6. Pause the video to copy that down, please, and then I'll go on to the next bit. So the two numbers that we found were 12 and negative 6, and the reason we need those is to split this coefficient of x. So I'm going to rewrite this equation. The 8x squared is going to stay the same, but what I'm going to do now with this 6x is I'm going to say that that's plus 12x, using this 12, minus 6x, using this negative 6. And if you look, 12x minus 6x simplifies to this 6x here. So I haven't changed the equation. From there, I want to factorise this side and factorise this side. So I want to factorise this half first of all, and I can take 4x out of this side. If I take 4x out, I get 2x plus, not plus 6. That's not correct, is it? I get 4x into 2x plus 3. And then doing the same with this side. They're both negative, so I can take a minus out. I can take 3 out, and that goes into 2x plus 3 again. And that is what I want to see. I want this bracket and this bracket to match. Because if these two brackets match, I can factorise that bracket out. Taking 2x plus 3 out of this term leaves me with just the 4x. Taking 2x plus 3 out of this term leaves me with just the negative 3. Then from there, this implies that either this whole bracket equals 0, so 2x plus 3 equals 0, in which case x equals negative 3 over 2. And I've told you before, when you get something like this, you can change the sign of this number, negative 3, and divide by the coefficient of x, so negative 3 over 2. Then this bracket implies that 4x minus 3 is equal to 0, and that would mean that x is equal to positive 3 over 4, which again, change the sign of this number, positive 3, divide by this number, positive 3 over 4. So that is how you would factorise a quadratic that has a non-prime coefficient of x squared. That should now be enough for you to have a go at the questions in exercise 2. If you are not feeling very confident about this type of question, do question 2 from exercise 2. If you are feeling confident, just go straight on to question 3 from exercise 2. I'm going to do one more example and that will help you do exercise 3. Solve the equation 12x squared minus 8x equals 15. This is exactly the same as the last example. It's just that all we need to do is change this into a quadratic that is equal to 0, and we're going to do that by subtracting 15 from both sides. Now it's just a quadratic to solve. And we're going to do the same as we did before. So we're going to multiply this 12 times this negative 15, and we get negative 180, and that equals something times something. We also take this negative 8, and that equals the two numbers multiplied together, added together. So what two numbers multiply to make negative 180 and add to make negative 8? Because they've multiplied to make a negative, one of these numbers is negative and one is positive. So what that really means is 8 is the difference between them. Can you think of two numbers that multiply to make 180 which have a difference of 8? The numbers are 18 and 10. When you multiply those together, you get positive 180. We need a negative. We need to add them together to get negative 8, so it must be the 18 which is negative. So the two numbers we need to use are negative 18, positive 10. I will leave that here. So we're going to use these numbers to split this middle number. So we're going to keep 12x squared, but we're going to turn this negative 8x into minus 18x plus 10x. So it still adds to exactly the same thing. And then minus 15. We want to factorise this first section. And I can take 6x out of both of those terms. And then I want to factorise this second section. And I can take 5 out of both of those terms. And just like last time, the two brackets match each other, which is exactly what I want. So I'll take 2x minus 3 out of both of those terms. From this term, I'm left with 6x. From this term, I'm left with plus 5. So I've factorised it. And then this bracket tells me that x equals positive 3 over 2. And this bracket tells me that x equals negative 5 over 6. That should now be enough for you to have a go at exercise 3. Questions 2 and 3 require you to actually do some multiplying out or multiplying through by something and then solving it. So if you're feeling confident, then just have a go at a couple from question 1 and then go on to question 2 and question 3. If you're not feeling very confident, just have a go at question 1 and then try a couple from question 2. Okay, so that should be everything. If you have any questions, please comment on Show My Homework. I will also be putting the solutions up so that you can mark your answers before you submit them. Thank you.